Well guys, on this episode of Chris Garage, we're doing something different. We are doing the exhaust manifold for this turbo. I got a box full of fittings. Let's get into it. So where do we start? We've got the turbo mounted up in a pretty good place, but where are we going to start? On the exhaust side. So the first thing you do is get a plate made up. So you would take your exhaust gasket, you'd take it to a CNC place, and they would laser cut out a manifold for you. You might get something like this. This is just a mock-up design. You keep going until you're happy and eventually get up something like this. Now I've already welded in some tubing on this. If I showed you every little thing that I'm going to do with this manifold, the episode would go on forever. So pretty much I've done that, and I also have pre-made the collector. This was a lot of trial and error. This was pretty much half a day to get this right. So that's why I've already pre-done these, because they are the two hardest components, and now all we have to do is spaghetti these together to try and join everything up. Now the thing is, we got a V engine, V6, so we got exhaust on both sides. So we need to figure out how to join them up and what type of design of manifold we're going. A lot of people will just go from both sides, join them up. What we're going to do is we're going to make a manifold for one side, and then we're going to join up to the existing exhaust gases on the other side with the standard manifold. So now that's out of the way, let's bolt it all up and start figuring out where all these little joints are going to go. So now that we've finished putting the plate onto the engine and also the collector onto the turbo, we need to do the piping in between the two. So we need to connect 3 ports out of cylinders 1, 3 and 5 into its own collector, and then run that line to the collector on the turbo. So how do we do this? Very simple. We're just going to get some piping and chop it up, and we're going to make our own collector. So a couple of things you're going to need is either a drop saw like I've got here, or an angle grinder. You're going to need a piece of paper, pen and a ruler, because we're going to need to make up one of these. And this is how you're going to get your angles to cut the collector to get a nice join. So, let's do it. Now that the angles are cut, we're over by the welder, and as you can see, I've gone over the whole thing with a wire wheel, and I've also put the bevel into it, because once we weld them together it's going to be really hard to try and machine that in. I'm using thinners on a rag just to wipe all these down, get all the oil off them, any yucky stuff, because it just makes the welding so much easier if they're clean. We've got a magnet here that I'm going to use just to hold it, and I'll just tack it on the magnet, and then I'll put it in the vise and put a bead on. But yeah, the cleaner you get this, guys, the easier it is to weld by far. And it doesn't take much. How do we go with the angles? Look, they're close, they're not perfect, but definitely it's going to get you into the ballpark, and you can just go over with an angle grinder and just get those dimensions right. Yeah, doing 3x3 quite hard. If it's a 4-way connector, quite easy, because pretty much it's just 90, turn at 90, and cut again, you know. So with these ones, you got to turn them around 120 degrees. So yeah, but anyway, look, it's going to work perfect. We're going to weld it up and it's going to be mint. So that's what we're going to do next. So as you can see, guys, we have started putting it together after I did that collector. So we're just doing number one, cylinder number one, and it's coming across really nicely. I've just got a 45 there and connected it straight to collector. I would have liked to run long runners because obviously it would be better if every cylinder was matching, but there's just not enough room in there to do it. So now that's done, all you gotta do is get the turbo collector on, and then it's pretty much take off and start welding all the pipes together and cutting everything up to fit. Like, all the hard stuff is done. It's just cut, chop, cut, chop. So there you go. So we've got the turbo mounted on. It's looking good. Now, before I go any further, there's something I need to do. Now, professionally, if you were welding this, what you would do is you would have argon or argon shell, depending on what you're welding, running through the pipe as you're welding on the outside of the pipe. I don't have the facilities to do that. The reason why it's a great idea to do that is because then you don't end up with excess metal coming inside the pipe. I don't know the technical name for it, but I call it an annoyance. So what we have to do now, before we continue, is grind out any excess that's inside the pipe so the exhaust flows a lot smoother. So that's pretty easy. There's a couple of different tools we can use. The old air grinder with a die grinder on the end. Really good, quick tool. Or we can use a drum well with just a cutting disc. And I actually find this maybe even better than this, just because it's a bit slower but it's way more precise and you can get a really nice finish.
I fell and lost to the war, shot me dead. I was lost and the same.
it in a jig, and doesn't the manifold look great at this point? So we've got it in a jig, using it as a heat sink, so when we do these welds, we don't get too much warpage. So as I did on the other side, I'm just going to weld an inch, weld an inch, weld an inch, let it cool down, and keep doing it until that's all done. And then all we're left to do is the wastegate and the crossover pipe. Pretty excited. I've spent many hours in this, but I'm very happy with how it's turned out so far. So let's get to it. As you can see right behind me, the turbo manifold is back on and it's looking great, and the crossover pipe is down, so now we can work out where we're going to put a dump pipe. But first thing we need to do is put the turbo back on and then check out where we can put this wastegate and get the right angles. As you can see from my smile, I'm ecstatic at how good that looks. It's come out really, really nice. Cleaned all the ins and outs. But now it's time to paint it in ceramic coating, and what this is going to do is it's just going to be a bit of heat control inside the engine bay to keep those temperatures down. I'm going to be doing inside and out. We're going to do 3 coats and then we're going to chuck it in our oven at 200 degrees. So as you can see, I've got an oven in the shed because my wife has had enough of me using the one in the house. So we've got this at 200 degrees, I've got on fan bake. Don't know if it's meant to be fan bake, but yeah, so it's been in there for about 40 minutes. Oh man, that does look good. Whew. So yeah, another 20 minutes. Let's see what she looks like when we're done. So it's the next morning. Oh man, I haven't seen it yet, so. Ooh yeah. How good does that look?
Holy fuck, that is loud.
Woohoo!
Oh.